It's the writing task 1 on the IELTS, and you're looking at a pie chart. You're seeing so much information. You're grasping the idea of what the chart is about, but suddenly, words seem to have abandoned you at the sight of numbers and shapes. Fear not. Pie charts are easy to understand and even easier to put their information into words, when you know the right words, that is. Welcome to Vuku. In today's video, we're going to explain to you how to write about numbers and pie charts in your IELTS exam. Without waiting any longer, let's get started. What is a pie chart? First things first, what is a pie chart? Pie charts are circular graphs divided into segments, each representing a proportion of the whole. They show you how different categories compare to each other. The key to interpreting pie charts lies in understanding how to translate these visual representations into accurate numerical descriptions. What should you understand about the question before you start writing? You have to understand the purpose of including this question as a writing task is to test your ability to summarize and evaluate important attributes of the pie chart and create a report based on that. You're usually given 2 charts from the same year or different years to compare. The answer should contain at least 150 words and should only take under 20 minutes to finish the task. The question often provides labels or legends to identify what each slice represents. Make sure you clearly understand categories before you start writing. Next, let's go through how to structure your response. Introduction. The first thing you have to do is paraphrase the question prompt. That's all you have to include in the introduction section. If you see something important enough on the chart, add that too. Paraphrasing is rewriting something in your own words without damaging the meaning of the original statement. You can do that by using synonyms and sentence structures. One thing you should make sure is that the sentence clearly summarizes what the chart represents. Also, mention the time frames if applicable. Let's look at an example. Consider this as the original question prompt. The pie chart shows the distribution of students in different faculties at a university in 2000 and 2020. Your answering sentence could be something like this. The pie chart illustrates the percentage of students enrolled in 5 different faculties at a university in the years 2000 and 2020. Some common phrases you can include in this section are the pie chart demonstrates, illustrates, presents, or the pie charts give information about, which can be used as the first few words of your report. Overview. The next part of the answer is the overview, in which you should provide a summary of the most significant information without going into too much detail. Include the main trends or significant differences you can observe and refrain from adding specific numbers or percentages. In this part of the answer, all you have to include is information about the sections that show the highest and lowest percentages in the chart. Or if you're comparing 2 charts, include sections that show the largest variations in figures. You can start the sentence with phrases like overall, or roughly, it can be seen that, or it is evident that, which are common phrases used by many. Here are some examples of how this section can be written. Overall, the majority of students were enrolled in science and engineering faculties, while arts and humanities accounted for the smallest portion. It is evident that there was a significant shift in energy consumption patterns over the 30-year period. Body paragraphs. This is the section where you include detailed comparisons and descriptions of the data while dividing your analysis logically. Start with the largest segments or the most important information which you mentioned in the overview and describe them using specific percentages or fractions as depicted in the chart. Then, move on to smaller segments or less significant data. One thing you should remember is to use comparative language, as pie charts often involve comparing different categories. Using comparative words and phrases, you can describe the relationship between the sectors easily. When certain segments are related, discuss them in the same paragraph. This makes your writing clearer. Here's an example of sentences you can include in this section. In 2023, science and engineering faculties made up 45% of the student body, significantly higher than the arts and humanities, which accounted for only 15%. Let me show you some other phrases you can include in the body paragraphs. For comparative forms, you can use words like larger than or smaller than, more than or less than, almost or nearly the same as. To describe changes that have occurred over time, phrases such as increased or decreased from, to, remained stable, unchanged, and experienced a decline, growth, can be applied. Percentages can be included in the sentences in several ways. Phrases like accounted for 30%, compromised 45% of, or made up of 60% can be used to express percentages. To represent these percentages in fractions, a tenth, 1 in 5, a quarter, or 2/3 can be employed. Conclusion. While a formal conclusion is not necessary for this question, a brief closing sentence that sums up your findings can help wrap up your response neatly. So, all you have to do is summarize your findings or restate the overall trends in one sentence. Here's an example of that. In conclusion, the distribution of students across faculties shows a clear preference for science and engineering, with little change in arts and humanities over time. Common mistakes to avoid. One of the most common mistakes made by many is misinterpretation of data. So, double-check your description and make sure it grasps the chart and the most significant trends among data accurately. Another is overcomplicating the description, which you can avoid by keeping your language clear and straightforward. Repetition is another common mistake. Always remember that repeating the same phrases can make your writing monotonous, and refrain from doing that. One other thing you have to be conscious about is using the correct tense. If the given year is before the present one, use past tense, and if the given year is after the present, use future tense in your sentences. Furthermore, if there's no year mentioned, write the description in present tense. Let me quickly go through today's lesson before we wrap up the video. When facing the IELTS Writing Task 1 with a pie chart, remember that they are straightforward to interpret and describe. All you have to do is know the right vocabulary. After you have identified the important segments of the pie chart, first step is to paraphrase the prompt to introduce the chart. Next step is the overview, where you summarize the most significant trends or differences without going into too much detail. Focus on the highest and lowest percentages or significant changes if comparing two charts. In the body paragraphs, provide detailed descriptions using specific numbers, fractions, and comparative language. Start with the largest or most significant segments. Apply phrases such as larger than or decrease from to explain differences. Use phrases like accounted for or made up of to describe percentages. Although a conclusion isn't required, a brief sentence summarizing your findings can neatly wrap up your response. That is how you practice yourself to face the IELTS question about the pie charts. Hope that question doesn't look as difficult as it seemed at first. If so, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Vuku for more IELTS guides. Remember, practice is the key to ace your IELTS.